Hey folks, and welcome to the Practical Microservices stream. Let's see what is up for today. Meetup time tomorrow, that is. Let me pull that up real quick. Why do I have to log in to see a meetup? That's silly. All right, here we are. Yeah, here is the post for it. So we're going to build a telemetry-enabled substitute, which will be useful for testing. And it's a good pattern to learn. Basically, if you've seen the test that we do on here, I walked through this yesterday and I'm going to do it again. So when we do handler tests, we access a handler's writer to see what messages were produced as part of that. And what we're going to do is break down exactly how that works. And so it's a combination of a couple of things. There is the dependency library. So if we do event tied dependency, this gem lets us do those dependency declarations. And then that, when you try to use a dependency on a newly instantiated instance of something, it checks the, let me pull this up and actually show it to you. So like here, this handler, which is what we're testing over here, I believe. Nope, I pulled up the commands handler. Same idea though. Let's see here. Right, so our events handler has this write dependency, which we say is messaging Postgres write. Whatever you pass here as the second parameter, if you choose to, you don't have to, but if you pass one and that thing has a substitute constant defined on it. Hey, SB Ditto, good to see you. Just walking through what tomorrow's meetup topic is going to be, if you're able to make it to that. But yeah, so our message handlers here have a write dependency typically, and declared with this dependency method here that comes from the dependency gem, which one of these somewhere along the way has included that already. So we don't have to explicitly do it here. Whatever you pass here is kind of the interface that your dependency follows. It'll check to see if that thing has a constant name substitute on it. And if it does, it will call the build method within that constant. 1 second. I don't have a good intermission screen, but I do need to take a phone call that I'm getting right now. So apologies there. It's going to mute real quick. I am back. All right. So yeah, I was saying that it will call the a build method on the substitute constant that you have, and then that will be what your dependency is until you do something else to the instantiated instance. And in our tests, we don't do anything. We just instantiate the handler. So when we call in the handler down here, when we actually write the message, we're using that substitute. And that's what we get access to here in the test. And that is what we're calling these methods like one message on. So repeating this all again today, that having done it yesterday, is also useful to today's stream because we're writing the code for it today. That's just the way it is. So we can go into event tied real quick and look at how this is actually done. The other library that's involved with it, let me pull that up real quick, is the event-tied telemetry library. And telemetry in process, telemetry based on observers. The idea is that your class has some instance of this telemetry class, and then at various points in whatever it is that your class does, you can record information about what it has done, and that mostly goes into memory. It has what's called a telemetry sink, and you can write whatever you want for that, but typically it would just go to memory. And then the stock telemetry sink gives you access to various methods to investigate what has been recorded with it. And so we use messaging write Postgres because, or is it messaging Postgres? It's messaging Postgres write. Let's go back to identity component here. We pass in a messaging Postgres write, not and, that's the class messaging Postgres write. I get paid for this stream based on how many times I say messaging Postgres write. So I'll probably just, I need to pad those numbers there. So if we go to messaging Postgres write, we can see that it includes messaging write. Because in theory, you could use event tied with other message stores. And there are these messaging event store, message store, event store gems in here. Those are, am I up to, I am not yet a 1%er. I think what I should do is, this is so silly. Like say, what happens? I don't think, maybe if I make this loud enough, you'll be able to hear this. Messaging Postgres write.
Messaging Postgres write.
There we go. Now I could take that and I can put that in a loop. And so then get paid lots and lots of money. I don't even know if that showed up on the stream. We'll see how good these unidirectional microphones are. Anyway, where's messaging? Here we go. So messaging write. It did? Nice. That's good to hear. Thanks for confirming that. That gives me so many more options going forward. Anyway, so there are the event store variants of a number of the gems. That code is in disrepair, so if you were to try to use it, I don't think it would work against current versions of Event Store DB. But you could bring them into the present day, and in theory, use event tied, but have event store as your message store. In any case, so messaging write, what it does is it captures what writing means independent of what the storage technology is. And where it introduces the specifics of the storage technology is this message writer dependency that it has. And what you can see is when we configure messaging Postgres write, when that finally gets called, it configures message store Postgres write. So the specifics of how to write the raw data to the message store via Postgres, it configures that onto itself at message writer. So that's how that gets filled in. But within this class, then the call that actually gets exercised, like this method right here, this call method right here is the same method that, that was the wrong one. I wanted this one. When we call write here and we have a, I guess we didn't get that far. I don't have the configure method in this handler yet, so it wouldn't work. Do I have the configure somewhere? Yeah, here we go. So like in a handler, we typically, I just feel like I should have put that in there already. I guess we haven't finished the send email component yet. So that's what the deal is there. What am I trying to say? Right. So when we configure messaging Postgres, right, configure here, that's what we end up calling is this eventually gets hit, and then we configure the message writer onto ourselves, meaning, the message store Postgres write gets configured onto our messaging Postgres write instance. And then when we actually call write in our handler or wherever we do it with a fully configured one, it is going back there. Got so many text messages today. That reminds me, let me just, let's just turn this on for an hour. Right. When we call right in the handler, wow, hit the wrong button. This is the method that we call right here. And so it does a bunch of things. There's log messages and all that kind of stuff. At some point along here, where is that call? Message batch, message writer. So this is where we use the actual message writer. So that's where we would then use the message to our Postgres write that we configured on the right-hand side of the screen right now. Then the method continues though, because it does some additional logging. And in addition to that, it records telemetry of what it wrote. So it is keeping track of what these writes are. So with that telemetry then available to it, if we go to the substitute, so in messaging, lib messaging write, we have this substitute module right here. I'm going to go to the top of the non-substitute write file real quick. This bit of Ruby right here is if you have a module, which is what we're in right here, this class definition ends right there. So that's just, we're not inside of a class here. We're inside of a module. So if you write a module and you put an included method on the module itself, so this one doesn't get included on a class that you include this module onto. If you put self.included, then the runtime will call this method at the moment that you include it. So we can look right here at this method, this class right here, this substitute write class. So messaging write, substitute write. This one actually is a class definition onto which we include messaging write. And when that happens, Ruby calls this method on us, passing us the class or whatever it is that we were included onto. So this CLS parameter right here is going to be this class definition right here. So what we're going to say then is, okay, take that class and we're going to class exec something. So that changes our context and I did that again. That's neat. Changes our context. So whatever we run in this block here is going to run as if we were putting it right here. So I'm just going to type include dependency right there. So this block saying this include dependency right here is exactly the same as if we had literally typed it right there in our class. We don't type it right here in the class because we are trying to reuse the definitions here in messaging write. And this is how we do that when the module requires including some other things. If this was outside of here, it wouldn't do us any good. We need it to be part of the class definition. So as part of that, we grab these additional includes. We're going to declare dependency, meaning now that anything that has included messaging write will have a dependency on message writer within it. And notice that there is nothing passed here. So that's just going to be a mimic object. And so any method we call on that, it's just going to return nil. It won't give us an error because we didn't specify an interface that it's supposed to conform to. So just whatever we call on it, it returns nil. But that's not how we capture what the write was. Notice we do have a dependency on telemetry here. We have these extends on here that take these methods in these various modules and make them class methods on the including class. So this class write will have access to this build method on it. Abstract comes from an event-tied gem. I think it's the virtual gem. Event-tied might be called abstract. Let me check real quick. One day, the event-tied project will be a bigger deal than the audio company. It's from this virtual gem, and virtual methods in OOP languages are ones you're declaring these can be overridden later. And you can also have an abstract method which when you declare something as abstract, you don't actually give it a body. And the point of that is if in a subclass later you don't override that method, you get an error. And that's what's going on here. This configure method is important. So if your thing that you're basing off of this module doesn't have its own configure method and configure gets called, this will give you an error because that you're trying to configure something that doesn't know how to configure itself is the intent of doing that. And then this const set substitute is how we make this substitute right here is this substitute right here. And so that's how we get the substitute onto the thing that we're including it on. And yes, there's like a little bit of a circular nature to this. I'm not exactly sure how that manages itself, but technically this thing now has a constant on it called substitute that has a class called write. So I wonder like how far you could take that, and maybe Ruby deals with that somehow. I'm not sure, but in any case, that's great. But now we come down here. No, that's messaging write. We want the substitute. So this write class over here on the left, so write with the W that we have over here on the left, it has on it now the telemetry instance. It has this call method. And so when we call this one, which is what we do in test, the message writer, again, is that null object, or mimic object is what the event type library is called, but it implements the null object pattern. This method call will just return nil, but we'll flow through and we'll record into the telemetry what we did. And so because we now have that telemetry on us, we can make use of it. So when we say call written, which let me go back to the component code right here. Oh, no, I want the one message one. Let's go to that real quick. I don't, oh, here we go. One message write. So there's this method, one message write, and we have below it an alias saying, so give this name to this method. So I think you could call either one. But it's an alias, just saves us some characters. I don't know the full reasoning behind aliasing that and not leaving it as one message write. But anyway, so when we call one message in our test, we're calling this method right here. We can pass it a block. And so what happens is it then calls message writes, which is this method right here. And then that goes to the telemetry sync that we have because we included a telemetry thing dependency on the class. And so we're going to go through what has been written. This written records, of course, is a method on the sync here. And then we iterate through everything that's been written. And then we call that block, passing it each record that's been written. Well, not strictly each record, but the message, the stream name, the expected version, and the reply stream name that it was written with. So this message is that bit right there. We're selecting only the ones for which the block evaluates to true. And so we get that in a list. And then if that list has more than one in it, then we get an error saying, hey, more than one message matched the block that you passed. Which this is a check to see if one message was written that satisfies the following conditions. And so if we got more than one of them, that's no good. If we got 0 of them, we don't give an error. That's fine. And then we just pass back what that first message was if we didn't get the error. So basically, like, the write substitute is implemented using the telemetry. And so the goal of the meetup tomorrow is to give a better understanding of the write substitute. And we're going to do that by developing our own substitute that's patterned the same way. And now comes the actual, I don't know, I think that was interesting. Hopefully it was interesting to you, but the decision-making part of the stream, like what are we going to implement? I'm thinking of just another write operation kind of a thing, but instead of going to a message store, it just writes lines to a text file or something. And so then we could investigate the content of the lines that were written, I suppose. Like the telemetry that we record could just be whatever it is that we write. I don't know if you've got any other ideas in there. We could make it more complicated, but time is a factor in this as well. I don't like to put off preparation until this late. Typically, I start working on it a week before, but a week before, I was prepping for the Node.js meetup, or sorry, Utah Stack.js meetup. So I am behind on things, and so that's what we're going to work through here today. So I've got this nice fresh terminal window here. Neat, that was loud. I'm going to, I don't remember how to invoke this thing. So how often do you make new components? Not all that often. There is an event-tied command line component generator, and it's a useful gem. And once you have it installed, you can use it to generate the skeleton of a component. Not building a component per se, but there's a couple of things from the standard setup of a component that I want, and those are installing the gems locally. Sorry, meaning within the project directory rather than to the global gem namespace, and then the load path stuff that enables that to work. So I'm going to grab this line right here, and what will we call this? I think I called it telemetry-enabled substitute. And so what it produces here is going to look kind of silly from the standpoint of a component. Like, what's the telemetry-enabled substitute component? Well, we're getting rid of all of that. So, whoops, I am in the wrong directory. So let's change into our telemetry-enabled substitute component directory. Oh, no, this just won't do. 1 second. Let's move that telemetry-enabled. Whoops, we need that full name. We'll just call it that. There we go. And then lib. I'm just going to delete this because it won't be too hard to recreate this part. And then we'll get rid of that one as well. Script start won't make any sense for what we're doing. Really want to fix whatever that bug is with NerdTree, how it just keeps chewing up more and more of the visible thing. We don't need this settings folder anymore, so we can just get rid of that altogether. Testing all this, we'll need database connection won't make sense. Automated init just requires test init, which there's a good chance we'll have controls, so I'll go ahead and leave that. We won't need messaging fixtures or fixtures of any sort because don't know how to use them yet, so we're not going to use them. At some point, we will have a telemetry-enabled substitute module. Gem file. We won't need component hosts. And this is the wrong name. Init. That is the wrong name. Install gems, I think, is pretty... Yeah, it has nothing to do with the specific paths. Same with load path, readme. I'm just going to say code use at the Utah Microservices Meetup in March 2023. And then let's see. I will just put there this URL. That's good enough. Symlink. I don't think that has anything specific. This is the gem spec. We will want that name to match. And then we can come in here and do this. And then I'll just put the same code used at the Utah Microservices Meetup. This probably doesn't even matter that much, but Meetup in March 2023. Whatever, I'll just put the same thing there. Because again, probably doesn't matter, but you know, I just like to fill out them forms, you know. So I'll put my information here. And then, practicalmicroservices.com, because this is like what's going to lead to tons of traffic let's see. So we don't have a dependency on that or any of those. We were going to use test bench though. We will be adding some gems here though, because like we'll need to add dependency at some point, for example. So I'm just going to leave that commented out for now. And that should get us set up and ready to move on this. So let's see, Utah Microservices Meetup, telemetry-enabled substitute. I don't know if I'll need these two windows, but whatever. We got them. All right, neat. So test interactive, automated. I think that the structure of these will look a lot like the structure in messaging, right? So because we're basically doing the same kind of thing, but instead of writing to a message store, we're just going to write to a file to keep it simple so that it's something we can develop during the course of the meetup. So let's see. What do the tests look like here? We've got test automated. That's pretty typical. We have write, and there are messages for checking the substitute and the telemetry. Right. We don't have the reply concept because we're not dealing with like event sourcing with this. But if we were to say open the right one, what do we look at? So my guess is we're checking to see if we were recording the telemetry when we write a message. So we get a control of a message, an example stream name, and then an example writer. That's interesting to me. What is the control writer or the writer control? My guess is it's just going to be a substitute. It is not. It's something else. Okay. That just gives us a thing that we can call that would include the telemetry on it. So then we're going to get registered telemetry sync writer. So this is a class method on write. So let's open write real quick and see what that is. That is the same file we were just in. I actually want this one. So record. That might be oh no, sorry, it's register. Register telemetry sync. Here we go. Class method. And what it will do is you pass it a writer, and then it will construct rather a telemetry sync. This telemetry, I believe, oh no, it's right down here. Is there a method called sync.new sync include telemetry sync? Okay, so there is a module within the write module called telemetry. We are going to call it sync method. And that sync method will instantiate a sync, which is defined in our write telemetry module here. Now this is going to go to the root of the namespace. So this is using the telemetry gem, and it's including telemetry sync on there. And these are declaring the kinds of signals that we'll record with our telemetry. We have written and replied. And then this struct right here is what we'll use. These are the signals that we're going to record. Sorry, we have written and replied, and these end up being the data structures that we store when we say, hey, record a written, record a replied kind of a thing. So that's going to set up what that telemetry sync is and give us a reference to it. So then we can exercise the writer here. Writer.write. Is there a def write here? I bet it's an alias. Yeah, there we go. So we have the call method. We give it an alias of write as well, which is, so this is just calling the call method with the message we want to write, the stream name and all these other things. And so after we've done that, then we're going to make sure that the telemetry is correctly recorded. So recorded written, did we record anything? And then we're going to look into the data that we recorded to make sure it was correct. So basically we want this structure entirely for our tests. So I am going to yank all of this and bring it over here. And so we're going to call our thing write as well. Write telemetry write.rb. There is our file. We can split that, and then I will paste all this in here. Now we're going to pretend that we're doing this in an actual TDD flow. So I'm going to go and comment out all of this. And I think we would want to remove one layer of that because we didn't go as deep. Is that right? So we're in telemetry, one out to write, one out to automated. Yeah, that looks correct. And we don't have this distinction that we need to make. So we can remove one layer of indentation and then one of these ends right there. So this should now run. So Ruby test. Actually, it won't run because there's a bunch of constants we haven't set up yet. So the first one will be that the telemetry enabled substitute doesn't exist. And that's just going to be in the require chain from having required the automated init. So Ruby test automated. That volume is up plenty loud. Let me turn that down. I'm sure that's exciting to hear that coming over the stream. Like, oh, neat. There's a beep there. Oh, right. We didn't even install the gems here. So let's do that. That was a lot faster than normal. So now I think we should get something about the test enabled substitute constant. There should be a name error on that. Cannot load such file. Oh, right. We weren't even able to load a file that we referenced. Okay, my bad. So let's put this here. Test enabled substitute. We will need the directory. We will. Oh, I didn't make it a directory, did I? Here, let me not type that twice. Actually, we can just move. What? Why can't I? Okay, that was weird. I don't know. Let's make a Ruby file out of that. And then we can also, not enough room. Oh yeah, there we go. You're not enough room, nerd. There we go. Now we'll have an actual file to include. Now we should get the name error. Load error. Cannot load such file. Telemetry enabled substitute. Oh, okay, I spelled it wrong. Yes, you have to spell things correctly. Telemetry enabled substitute and telemetry enabled substitute. There we go. Now that we have the actual file, we should get that name error. Load. What? Oh, controls. That would have come from the test init, right? So let's add that real quick as well. That would go into here. We would have a controls.rb file. So this is just showing that my mental model of what all the files involved are is defective or deficient, rather. Will we get the controls error first or the... Because we don't have the controls... No, it's going to be the module for test enabled substitute because we wouldn't be able to get to the controls until that one was in place. So there we go. That's what I'm looking for. Uninitialized constant name error. Great. We have it now. So we need something that will have that module on it. And I'm just going to go ahead and make a file called write because we're going to need it. And in here, we will make module telemetry enabled substitute like so. And then we'll need to put that in this loader file. Telemetry enabled substitute / write. Now we should get past the name error that we had. Now we should get one on the controls module not being in place. It passed. Okay. I did not like that. Did I comment that line out? How did that work? Oh, my bad. Yeah, we don't include it anywhere. We just required the file and the file exists. Okay. If we tried to actually grab something with a control in it. Yeah. Okay. Phew. Normality is restored into the world. So it's not good enough for something to work. It has to work for the right reason, right? Because the goal is to understand what's going on. So neat. All right. So we would need not a message. Let's call it text. Just some example of text. Now this will fail because the controls module is not there. So we'll get another name error. Uninitialized constant controls name error. I'm happy to see that. And it's really warm in my room, so I'm going to take this jacket off. And because I care about things a great deal, I'll just toss it on the floor next to me. All right, so come up here to controls. We will need to make a controls folder in which we will have a text control. Like so, and then, wow, that's, oh, neat. Really don't like this nursery thing, but not enough to fix it because I haven't fixed it. So let's get our big module there. We'll get our controls module. Just enough code to get past the current test error. That's the discipline we're trying to have. So let's see, telemetry enabled substitute. Controls text. Oh, now we get an error because text is not defined. Indeed, that's what we got there. Good to see. Ugh. Did not mean to close Vim there. That's fine. That's fine. Everything is good. There's this YouTuber I used to watch, and she would say, "That's fine" all the time. And I was like, that's so obnoxious saying that's fine all the time. And now I find myself doing the same thing. So instead of thinking that's obnoxious, now I am filled with empathy. So we want a module. The videos were great though. They were Factorio videos. Really fun game. I enjoy Factorio. So what's an example of text that we would write? How about so long and thanks for all the fish? That will be our example. And I did not write just enough code to get past the current test failure. So let me correct that. Didn't mean to have that J there, but whatever. It's after the comment. So we run the test now and it'll say there's no method called example. Okay, so now we can undo that and test passes. Great. All right. So continuing along with our inspiration and not totally ripping off the design of something else. I'm going to remove stream name there. And we want a similar thing here. So controls write example. This will fail because there is no write module within the controls. And that's what we got. Great. So write. We will grab those two lines again and do a module write like so. And we need to add this to our controls loader. And now it should say there is no example method on that module, which is what we got. So things are working as expected. Self.example, and I'm not going to have it return anything. We're not trying to do anything with it, so we don't need to write any more code there. Great. Sync. We will need a telemetry sync because this is what we care about. Now here is where we are inspired by the right module that we are being inspired by. But I think we can close the controls and the text controls. So if we open our write thing here, what we will currently get is that there is no module write. So we can add one, module write, and let's follow the rules of the language. How about there is no method register telemetry sync on there? Great. So let's add one, def self dot register telemetry sync. Now it's going to be the wrong number of arguments. So we can say writer, and now we're passing again. Haha, Fun. So now we can write our text. We don't care about all the other options because we're not doing a message writer. It will tell us there is no method write on our writer because it's nil class. So we would need to come here and actually give it something. So we could say, I don't know, what if there is, it's unfortunate that it's the same name there. Like so. That's not going to work because that write constant doesn't exist. Ooh, what happened here? Undefined method new for the module, indeed. Oh, right. Yeah. My bad. Yes. In the event type example, there was a class definition in here that it used. So let's go over there and borrow that. We're making a module, not a class. Here we are. What am I going to grab? Let's just grab this whole thing, shall we? That's the beauty of open source. And I'm going to just paste that. Oh, right, because it's a different process. I can't yank that to the Vim clipboard. It has to go to the system clipboard. And we'll put this in here. I'm going to close that file right there just so we can see better. So the example here would be example.build. So we get rid of all that and we can copy this right up to here. There we go. So we're getting a controlled instance of a writer. What is that thing? We're going to go to this example class and make an instance of it. I'm going to comment that out right now and comment that out right now. So now that we have an actual, there's no build message on that thing. So that's what we will get. That class example has no method build. Indeed, that is what we got. So. Trying to think. I know what design we're moving towards. So we could just do like a self.build in here. And not actually put it into the other module until we need it. But I don't want to go that way. I don't think that adds anything. So this is where we need to do the telemetry-enabled substitute. Right. It's a module. We're including it. That still won't give us a build method, though. So now we would come over to this write module here. And now we have to make it so that having included this, we will get that on there. So we're going to borrow a few things from the event-tied module over here. Let's see. Basically, this whole structure right here. First. And I'm going to close the control real quick. Pull that over so that it's aligned. I'm going to leave off all of that stuff right now and all of these right now. We just want this build and then we'll go get build real quick. And then drop that in right here. Indentation is wrong. Fix that real quick. We don't have the concept of a session, so we can drop that. We do want an instance. We don't have to configure anything. We do want to configure the telemetry, but not yet. And so this could just be new, but not strictly following the TDD flow here. So I'm going to do a new.tap do instance because we're going to have more than one thing to configure. That's just a style choice I'm making. So if I did this all correctly, we should now have a build method. And so our error, what's wrong here? Module definition in method body. Oh, yeah, this is in the wrong place, isn't it? You would go there. So And then we need another end like so. Okay. So now the error should be that there's no method right on our instance. Let's see if that is the case. Yes. Ah, I'm so happy that worked. We're also at time, so I've got to stop here. But undefined. Hey, Lord Crispy Chicken, welcome back with the raid as well. We're actually about to wrap up right now because I've got to get back to my day job, but undefined method right is exactly where I wanted the error to be there. And so the next step will be to add the call method and give it an alias of right. Yeah. So the flow tomorrow for the meetup is going to be, I'm probably going to have like the controls in place already, and then we can just talk through those. But what the code that I want to write as part of the meetup is the stuff within this module right here. And I'm going to cheat on that. Like I'm going to have a reference thing because I don't want to get the whole meetup bogged down in me trying to remember stuff. And that just, the flow of the whole thing breaks if we do that. But yeah, we're going to go through it and end up developing the substitute and putting in whatever methods we need to test to make sure that the class actually works properly. So anyway, hey, thanks for coming today, everybody. Hope you are having a fantastic Wednesday, because that's what day it is, right? Yep. Figured I'd better double check that before I wish everyone a happy one. Anyway, have a great day. See you next time, and happy coding.